सहनाववतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यङ्करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः. So let's chant verse number 1, 5, 20, and then the last two verses, I believe 45 and 46. Rupam drishyam lochanam drik tadrishyam driktumanasam drishyadhi vrittaya sakshi drigeva natu drishyate nodeti nastametyesha na vriddhim yati nakshayam swayam vibhatyata anyani bhasayet sadhanam vina. Number 20. Asti bhati priyam rupam nama chetyam shapanchakam adyatrayam brahma rupam jagat rupam tato dvayam. Number 45. Laye phenasya taddharmaha dravyadyasyu-starangake tasyapi vilaye nire tishtantyete yatha pura. One more time. Laye phenasya taddharmaha द्रव्याद्यास्युः-तरङ्गके तस्यापि विलये नीरे तिष्ठन्त्येते यथा पुरा. Then the last one. प्रातिभासिक जीवस्य लये स्युः व्यावहारिके तत्लये सच्चिदानन्दाः पर्यवस्यन्ति साक्षिणी. One more time. Pratibhasika jivasya layesyur vyavaharike tatlaye satchidanandaha paryavasyanti sakshini. So today is the last class, number 47 of Drg Drsya Viveka, and what we will do is we will finish these two last verses today, and then we will do a meditation on the last of the meditation verses, which is number 27, Hridi Iva Bahya Deshepi. So we will do a meditation on that. And so with that, a structured meditation on which began with number 23, Savikalpa Nirvikalpa, and ending with verse number 27, Hridi Iva Bahya Deshepi. So we will finish that also. So with that, we will finish the class. So what I'm thinking is that we will take a break for next week. We will not have any class next week. And then the following week, we will begin chapter 8 of Bhagavad Gita, because we had done up to chapter 7. Then we took a break to do Drg Drsya Viveka. Then we will go back to chapter 8. And I think, as I mentioned to you before, I will not reconstitute the roster. And so those of you that are on the Drg Drsya Viveka roster will kindly those of you that are interested in going back to the Bhagavad Gita, which I hope many of you are. It's always a great overview of the entire Shastra. And chapter 8 is a very interesting one because it talks about kind of like the next life as a result of this life, what would happen. And so it has some very interesting features, and why, for that reason, chapter 8 also is recited towards the end of one's life here. So people who are on the final, in a hospital somewhere, then this chapter is recited to them. Anyway, so that's chapter 8 of the Bhagavad Gita, and I hope that you will join me. And if you don't, completely understandable. I think the Drg Drsya Viveka is a very good foundation for advanced study, and the more you are clear about it, it's a foundational, advanced foundational text which really help you to provide the basics to take off from as you go into more advanced studies. So wonderful. I'm very happy that we did that. So with that, let us do the final 2 verses, and then we will do a meditation after this. So in verses number 43 and 44, so in 43 and 44, what was pointed out was kind of like a 2-step process. So it is interesting to look at it that way. There are many ways to approach the structure of the truth and how it appears to be untruth. There are many ways of approaching that. So one way is what we had discussed before, which is that instead of just one identity that we have in our life, a single identity, a single jiva, we should now see that we actually have 3 identities. So this identity of the waker is not the only one. The identity as a dreamer and the identity as a sleeper should also be kept on the same level. See, so follow this for a minute before I reintroduce number 43 and 44. So what I'm saying is that what's pointed out earlier is that at this moment, if you were to interview someone and ask them about who are they would naturally answer by saying, whoever they are in the waking state is who they are. So if you ask them, what about the dream? He says, well, the dream is not that important, I mean, so what? It doesn't really, there's nothing much to talk about it. What about sleep? That's also just a rest. The main thing is what I do during the waking hours and what my life is. I used to be a baby, now I'm becoming bigger and I'm accomplishing these things, they are my problem. All this is what I'm concerned about. So Vedanta says that this needs to be re-examined. And what you should look at is, you are not the waker as the only identity. You actually have three identities that are on the same level. So I am stressing the word same level for a minute. Then I will look at another way, we will look at it another way, which is not on the same level. But for this analysis, the splitting up of your identity into three segments that are on the same level should be considered. Okay? So what do you mean by the same level? The same level means, if you really inquire into it, if you are serious about this, if you look upon this as sort of like, how useful is this in my life? Really speaking, what we are looking for is something which works for me, which is useful to me. And a discussion of three levels and so on, it doesn't appear to be a very important one. It really does nothing for me, and I don't really want to put a lot of time into it. But the teaching says, wait. You think this is not important, but please examine from the experience of all the wisdom in the world that has gone by, that this is an important thing for you to investigate. So if something like this happens and if it catches my attention, then I say, okay, all right, what do you mean that the three segments? Then the wise people say, listen, when you are a dreamer, at that time you do not think any less of the dream than you do when you are a waker. They are identical. They give you the same sukha dukkha, the same problems, the same solutions. Some minor differences here and there, but by and large they're pretty much the same. This is what we mean by the same level. Now, when you come out of it, then you feel, oh, that's not that important because there is no continuity of the dream. And so then you conclude that the dream is not on the same level, it's on a lesser level. But the fact of the matter is that analysis is not true. You really have three same levels, and the interesting thing is that the three levels keep on repeating. So this is interesting because it's not as though you only slept and dreamt once in your lifetime and now you're trying to recall, oh, remember one time when I was dreaming? No. When we finish this class and your day is over, you'll again do the same thing. It is repeated over and over and over again. Same thing on the sleep also. So the sleep also is a very important segment of my identity. Okay, just want to make sure there's no interruption on this, because that's what Chawla and Zarina had called and told me that another class was interrupted, so I keep my phone on just for that purpose. So the sleep is also important because it's on the same level, because my identity with my maker, my creator, Brahman, is also an important identity which is on the same level. Because for a number of hours, my identity is disconnected from the world. Completely disconnected. See, this is why this regarding sleep as something, there's just that's not good. That's not the right thing to do. Not good means not the right thing to look at it. Imagine how important that segment is. Imagine. Appreciate it. Not imagine, but appreciate it. Because what an interesting episode where what I would say is that even your physical pain is disconnected from you. You can say that, sometimes we have mental pain, emotional pain, because of certain memories and certain thoughts in our mind and so on. Those are very subjective. So sometimes we say that, please don't think about all those bad things. Just live your life on a day-to-day, so you are able to disassociate yourself. But what about physical pain? What if you broke a bone and you are in severe pain? Even if with some anesthesia and so on, with a broken arm or something like this, at night time you're disconnected from that. Remarkable. So the identification with the maker, with my creator, separate from the created, is also on the same level. All three of them are on the same level. So there Vedanta says that, listen, so go from a single identity into a triple identity, which is the truth. And guess what? That is also not the complete truth. Because in fact, it's interesting because if you look at the reasoning for it, we are all looking for a single identity. Who am I? I cannot be multiple people. You see, if you're supposing you are looking at, I am just picking out some, just sort of like an example. Supposing you're looking at the carpet. You can relate to the carpet and you can understand what this is if it stays as a carpet. Single identity. Supposing while you're looking at the carpet, it turns liquidy, melts. And then as you're looking at it, it turns vaporized. Then it goes back into solidity again. You are saying, what is this? Should I take it as a liquid? Should I take it as a vapor? Should I look at it as a solid? I'm not sure, because all three of them, it keeps on changing. So anything that has multiple identities cannot be the truth of that thing, isn't it? That's very obvious. So in my case also, what's happened is that now I have three identities. And in all those, I have multiple identities within those three identities. Sometimes I'm happy. Sometimes I'm very forgiving to people. I'm loving. Other times I'm impatient. And I'm unhappy. And I'm jealous. All kinds of identities. Who am I? It's exactly the same situation. And I'm looking for a single identity. Is it a carpet or is it a liquid? Is it a vapor? So Shastra leads us through this. He says, first of all, at least direct your analysis from a what you consider to be a single identity, which is actually multiple identities also. You see, we would not redirect you from a single identity if that identity was stable, but it's not. Sometimes you're young, sometimes you're old, sometimes you're happy, sometimes you're unhappy. That's multiple identities. So at least to look into the truth of that, look at to see that you are three identities. And you cannot be three identities. Then the thing to do is to look at further. If you are multiple identities, then does it not make sense, my dear, for you to go further? That means that you are someone who can assume three identities, but you are none of those three identities. Doesn't make not sense to you. It should make sense to you because that is the truth. So this is what is called Turiya, which is the fourth identity, which is the actor, not the role. You are playing three roles on the same level. And you are not the role. You are capable of playing the role, but you are different from all the three roles. So this is the sequence of the analysis that goes. Single identity, multiple identities, back into, not back, really a truthful single identity that does not change. And this is what we have to discover. Okay, so this is one thing. Now there is an alternate way of looking at it. Alternate way of looking at a single identity assuming multiple identities. And alternate way is not on the same level, but on three levels. And this is what is presented in verse number 43 and 44, which we did last week. And in that one, the three levels are, first of all, you have water. And the water is the single identity which does not change. It has some qualities. It has madhuryam, it has fluidity, sweetness, coolness. So this is just like Sat, Chit, Ananda, three different aspects of it, but it's the same entity. It's not like water is coolness in one part and not in another. It's all the same. So it's a single identity which is water. So that is like the Turiya. That's another way of looking at it. That's all I'm pointing out. Now the water assumes a form of a wave. So when you assume a form of a wave, that means it's an expression of the original. So wave is nothing but an expression of the water. It borrows the three qualities of the water. This is what we did in number 43. It borrows the three things from the water, namely madhuryam, and then shitalata, and fluidity. What are the words that were used? Dravya, shaityam, madhurya, and dravam. Dravam means fluidity. Madhuryam means sweetness, and shaitya means coolness. They are naturally cool, naturally sweet, naturally fluid. That quality is now borrowed in the second version, which is a wave. Now the wave itself can have certain qualities that it can express itself in. And here it was done in the form of certain foam. So the water gives rise to a wave, and the wave gives rise to a foam. So the foam is a derivative of the wave, and the wave is a derivative of the water. So here in this example, this is what I'm pointing out, they are not on the same level. So one is Paramarthika Sat, the other one is Vyavaharika Sat, the third one is Pratibhasika Sat. One is total truth, the other one is transactional truth, and the third one is subjective truth. So these are the three levels that one can also look at it. So in that sense, the Turiya that we spoke of, the Sakshi, the Atma, Satchidananda, never changes. That's like the water. It retains its identity ages to ages. It's not as though in this life or anything, it is the same. And that is Ishvara, that is the Brahman. It's all same, timeless. It's the very identity of the whole substratum of the world. This is one level. Then there is an expression of that identity in the form of a human being or any other living being. And the living being borrows the Satchidananda and expresses it in some limited form. And that becomes the Jiva. And that Jiva expresses itself in the form of a dream. And in the dream, the experiences of the waking life are extracted, turned around, redone. And for whatever reason that we will discuss separately, it creates an identity of a dream. So here in verse number 43 and 44, these three levels are talked about, which is an alternate way of looking at it. Both are equal the way you look at it, as being on the three on the same level, or three on two different levels. So that was number 43 and 44. Now the last two verses gives the reverse process. Means that just to underscore that the foam and the wave are essentially non-different from the water, their reabsorption into the water is now explained. Similarly to what 43-44 was, reversing the process. So he says, Laye Phenasya tad dharmaha Dravyaha syuhu tarangake. So he says that when the foam resolves itself as it must, because it is just momentary, the entire spreading of the wave into smaller droplets comes back to the wave. It's called laye. It becomes laya. Means resolves itself. So the foam resolves into the wave. Then tasyapi vilaye nire tishtanti ete yatha pura. Then the wave furthermore resolves into the water. Foam resolves into the wave, and the wave now furthermore resolves into the water, underscoring that their identity as a separate foam or a separate wave is not true. they are really just water itself. So that's what it's saying. Laye phenasya tad dharma dravyadyaha suyu tarangake tasyapi vilaye nire tishtanti ete yathapura. So the English translation of that is, when the foam dissolves, its attributes such as liquidity, etc., abide back into the wave. And when the wave also dissolves, these attributes abide in the water as before. Very simple. So in anyway, let's finish number 46. Then I just a couple of more comments, and then we will start the meditation. So now this is the example. Drishtanta in Sanskrit, the example is called Drishtanta. And so the example is that of something, and an example means something we can grasp. What is exemplified is not yet grasped, but it should be proceeded to be grasped the same way as an example. That's the whole idea. So the example is that of something that comes out, goes back to it. Now, what is exemplified is now given in the last verse of the text, which is Pratibhasika jivasya laye syuhu vyavaharike tatlaye satchidanandaha paryavasyanti sakshini. So it says that the Pratibhasika jiva, which is the dream, resolves into Vyavaharika jiva, which is the waker. So the dream came out of the waker and this is this multi-level analysis. So there the dream resolves back into the waking experience, and now the waking experience should resolve, will resolve back into Satchidananda, which is the very substratum of the jiva. The timing is different, but it will happen. Why will it happen? Because it evolved from the Satchidananda. And so whatever comes out of it, which borrows itself, goes back to it. So similarly, for example, if you have a heat of a water, the heat of a water when is resolved, the heat source is removed, then it becomes coolness of the water again, which is the natural state of it. And so this is the example given in this is exemplified. So here it means that, really speaking, we should understand that my uncertainty of who I am and what I do and what are my future and so on, the real future is the resolution into my content. The content, the substratum of all waves is what it is made out of. And this is where I would resolve. And furthermore, because unlike the wave, which is completely inert, has no consciousness in it, in my case, even though I am like a wave, because I've got a form, an individuality, and I'm changing. All those kinds of things are there, but I'm also imbibed with consciousness, which I also borrowed from Satchidananda. You see? Because of my consciousness, mixed up with all the changes like a wave, I become very uncomfortable. The wave is not uncomfortable, but I am. Why? Because I am aware. This is what is also, for those of you that are taking the Purusha Suktam class, and we went through this in great detail, and we are now revising it. I'm finishing up my notes on the revision of the Purusha Sukta, and I'll be sending it out to you in the next day or so. And that class also is in its final form, final days. But what Purusha Suktam pointed out is, same thing as here, that we as individuals, as human beings, have some discomfort with who we are. We're not completely satisfied with who we are. We may have there are of course differences in self-appreciation. Some people are very happy with themselves, some people are not. There are variations. But all of us are somewhat uncomfortable because we're not sure about who we are and what our future is. What is going to happen to me? Not sure about it. We're uncomfortable. This discomfort doesn't come out to the surface every day, but it is there in the background. And this is to be understood to be a disassociation from where I came from. Atyarichyata, in the Purusha Suktam we said, Tasmad Atyarichyata, that because this is like a wave, and in some ways you can say that supposing there is an iceberg floating in the water, that iceberg has a separate identity, separate from the water, and it's uncomfortable. Where am I? And it's melting. So where am I? Where am I going? What's my future? Similarly to that is the discomfort, the uncomfortableness of the jivas. And what it is said is, this discomfort. And this discomfort comes from the fact about the uncertainty of where I will be. What is going to happen to me? It is not a natural state for me to be away from where I came from. A wave is not a stable individual. Waviness is vulnerable, is changing, and it's going to disappear. And if the wave has some consciousness, it would certainly cry, certainly be discomfort, as we are. And it is all because we do not really know where we came from and therefore where we are going. So Purusha Suktam also points out that, listen, please understand that you are really not away from Satchidananda. You are actually thinking you are away from Satchidananda. And here, Asti Bhati Priyam, Asti Bhati Priyam, Satchidananda, Satyam Jnanam Anantam. Same thing. Number 20, Asti Bhati Priyam. And this is where you came from. This is where you evolved. Came from meaning that that's your true identity, a stable identity. Like water is a stable identity, this is your stable identity. You just don't get it at this point, that's all. So your discomfort, your feeling of uncomfortableness about the future and so on, all stem from the fact that you don't know what you are, where you came from, and where you are going back again. And really speaking, the separation is all mental. It is not physical. So the wave, if it feels that, my God, I'm so isolated and so on. So the guru wave comes in and he says, what are you talking about? What isolation? What isolation? Where are you isolated from? So he says, no, I'm just a small wave and all these other bigger waves are threatening me and so on. Crazy, you're crazy, wave. No one is threatening you. No, you're not a smallness. You are the very water. Don't you see it? No, I don't see it. Okay, well then see it. Because I don't know how else we can help you. Because that's not true. You're just uncomfortable because of the untruth of who you think you are. That's it. So you are never really away from the truth. This is the situation. I am searching for Ishvara outside somewhere, not knowing that the nature of Ishvara is me. This is what I have to inquire into. That's what it says in number 46. Pratik bhasika jivasya laye syuhu vyavaharike tat laye satchidanandaha paryavasyanti sakshini. He says you will go back to, that is parakashta. Parakashta means that there is really, once you do that, you will no longer be uncomfortable about anything. You'll be stable and you'll be happy. And because why? This is the very source of the whole universe. This is the very nature of God. And so, this is what it says in the Taittiriya Upanishad, in the Brahmananda Valli. It says, Brahmavid apnoti param. The one who understands this, that one's identity is nothing but Brahman. Because right now, I think what is happening is that because of my ignorance, I refuse to allow Ishvara to sit in my heart. And that causes problems in me. And if I just understand, I'll allow, this is like a wave, refusing to allow the thought that I am the entire water. There's only one thing. You have to give up the identity of a waviness to allow the absolute identity of the water to overwhelm you. So similarly here also, as long as, and this is what we were discussing in the earlier class in Brahma Sutra, that I am just blocking the vision of the original self by having this copy of the self, which is like a wave, taking over my identity. So once I allow that to happen, my Brahmavid apnoti param. It's done, all finished. So with that, the text is over. The text was actually a lot of there's some disagreement as to what the Drg Drsya Viveka, how long is the text. So a lot of people believe that the original text was from 1 to 31, and this is more of a revision that was added on to clarify and to revise and so on. And other people feel no, this is all part of the same text. Doesn't matter. Either way, that's just academic way to do that. But Swami Viditatmananda in page number 2452 says that apparently this was composed by Brahmananda Bharati, the disciple of the author of the text, who is Bharati Tirtha. So Bharati Tirtha is the guru of Swami Vidyaranya, who wrote Panchadashi. And so he apparently is the author of Drg Drsya Viveka. His name is Bharati Tirtha. But all that is, we Hindus in India, we don't do a good job of maintaining historical authenticity and so on. So it's all become nebulous, all done word of mouth. We don't write things down. We don't think it's worth doing it. But anyway, whatever it is, it's uncertain, but most likely it will be Bharati Tirtha, who is the author of Drg Drsya Viveka. So with that, I congratulate all of you for completing this text. I think it is an important text in each one of us. Certainly has been for me. I mean, I cannot even imagine how many times I have reread it and absorbed it. And every time I do it, it really clarifies and strengthens my understanding. And I wish the same to you. So with that, I close off the text. Now let us complete the other part of this, which is a structured meditation. And so there, let us start with number 23. So there we said even 22. So let's start with number 22. The number 22 said, so I would even go back to number 20. Asti bhati priyam rupam nama chet iti amsha panchakam. So he says everything in the world has 5 different aspects to it. Asti bhati priyam rupam nama. So asti, so sat, bhati, chit, priyam, ananda, then the form and name. Everything has 5 things, out of which the first 3 don't change and the last 2 change. And what changes is based on the changeless. So here, this should not be taken as something obtuse, very simple, that the ornaments of gold, the gold never changes, but ornaments that are made out of the gold have a name and a form, and they can't keep on changing. And so if you focus on the name and form of the ornaments, then you are under the spell of the dharma of the ornament. Is it good? Is it bad? Is it good looking? Is it well made? Is it too fragile? Will it break? All of those dharmas you are doing. But if you look at the very content of the ornaments, which is asti bhati priyam, which is gold, you have none of those problems. It never began. The ornament began, but the gold never began, so to speak, in our example. So it is stable, it is not vulnerable. It has the same luster as always. So it is really more of my ability to discard what is incidental and to focus on what is intrinsic. This is what it is. So, first of all, the introduction to this concept has been provided in the Shravanam. Then in the Nididhyasanam, even though I know it, it doesn't really allow me to focus on this very well. So samadhi is a good thing to do. Meditation is a good thing to do. Here samadhi means nididhyasanam. And the way to do that in number 22 was upeksha nama rupe dve, disregarding the name and form, satchidananda tatparaha, that your samadhi should be focused on the common element of yourself and in all of your stages, rather than the incidental stages of your life. And this samadhi can be done in one of two ways. This is number 22. Upeksha nama rupe dve means disregarding nama rupa, satchidananda tatparaha, focus on the satchidananda, samadhim sarvada kuryat. Your nididhyasanam should be always done in one of two ways, hridaye and bahihi, either inside or outside. Then the number 23 was on the inside. You know, one probably way to look at that, and we might actually do this, inside with the eyes closed and outside with the eyes open. That's one way to look at it. I think it's a good way to look at it. So with the eyes closed, your meditation has three different aspects. So one is Drsya Anuviddha Samadhi Savikalpa, means that your samadhi, your exploration is with certain forms that you see with your eyes closed. With your eyes closed, one can say, how can you see a form with the eyes closed? Form meaning that you have certain forms of the mind. You can say, like for example, I am happy. The eyes are not telling you I am happy, but the mind is telling you I am happy. Past. The eyes are not telling you the past, but your mind is telling you this was past. I haven't thought about this is the future. I'm hearing some sounds right now. This is all the mind telling you all this. Eyes are not telling you this. Eyes are closed. So this is all the formful meditation with the eyes closed. Then the second one is Shabda Anuviddha Samadhi Savikalpa, where you're not looking any forms, but you're remembering some words. And we saw the example of that, Asanga, Satchidananda, Swaprabha, Dvaita Varjita, number 25. So that's the second type of Savikalpa. Then the Nirvikalpa is that if you keep on doing this with a lot of practice, and in all cases, when you're doing Shabdanuviddha Samadhi, Savikalpa or Drishyanuviddha Samadhi Savikalpa, your your practice should be to look at the commonality which is you, the Satchidananda. That should always be the focus. Because we don't need meditation to be looking at things outside, examining them and watching TV programs and so on. There's no meditation required for that. But the meditation would be if you were to look at the Satchidananda while you're doing meditating. So in the eyes closed, it's relatively easy to do. I'm just bringing up to today's meditation. So Kamadhyaha Chittagaha number 24, then Asangaha Satchidananda number 25 we did. Okay, then comes number 27, which is today's meditation. And it says, Hridi iva bahya deshepi yasmin kasminscha vastuni samadhi adya sanmatrat nama rupa prithakriti. So he says that just like the inside, even in the outside, you can do this meditation. That is the one we are going to do today, just in a very short time, just to show how it could be done. And with that, our structured tour of the meditation techniques will also end along with the rest of the text. Okay, so let's do that. So here, you can begin with your eyes closed, but then we will transfer it with the eyes open, and I will tell you when to do that. So you can sit quietly with your eyes closed in the beginning. And you know all the steps to it and so on, so we won't go through all of that. So a sankalpa in the form of a prayer is always good to do. So you can just start with some prayer to Ishvara. Om Namasteastu Bhagavan Vishveshwaraya Mahadevaya Triambakaya Tripurantakaya Trikalagnikalaya Kalagnirdraya Neelakanthaya Mrityunjayaya Sarveshwaraya Sadashivaya Shriman Mahadevaya Namaha. Hey Ishvara, may you help me to see you and to not fail seeing you at any time. I know you are there, but I fail to see you because I am so used to only seeing Namarupa. Help me see you, Satchidananda, at all times. You have introduced me to doing meditation with my eyes closed. May you now introduce me to Nididhyasanam, outside also. I appreciate that you are present as a common conscious entity in both me as an experiencer as well as in the experienced. As a dreamer and as a dreamt. So the meditation with my eyes closed was on me as a dreamer. And now may you help me with the meditation with my eyes open. So with that, let us open our eyes. What I see is a scene in front of me. I see a room. I see some furniture. I see a wall. A door, tables and chairs. I can see that. I can see that the ability to see is through a consciousness given to me by Ishvara. When I look at something, I am not like an inner camera. I am looking at it through my eyes. and the difference between a camera looking at a scene and I looking at a scene is your consciousness, O Ishvara. You have given me the ability to be conscious. That is how I am looking at it. I appreciate it. I did not consider that before your teaching. Now, please help me not to ignore the main ingredient in my seeing things, which is the conscious presence. This conscious presence asti bhati priyam satchitananda is constant. If I look around and I see a different scene in front of me, the scene might change, but the consciousness through which I am seeing a different scene is the same. No matter where I look, I see that I remain the same conscious being. How could I have missed this before? It is very obvious to me now. I can look up. I'm aware of the sounds. Same consciousness allows me to hear. If I am tasting something, if I am touching something, what I am tasting, what I am touching, whether I am touching, all keep changing. But I find that the power of my consciousness to taste, to touch, to hear, to see, does not change. My God, this is obvious. How could I miss this before? as I close my eyes and I open them, my consciousness does not change. Today, tomorrow, during the day, evening, last year, next year, there is no change. You are not made up, Ishvara, of any objects. You are self-aware. Self-supporting. You don't need any support. That's the nature of Satchidananda. Timeless, never born, not vulnerable, thank you. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. So nice to hear all of your comments. I'm very happy that you studied this text with me. Lychee, I appreciate what you're saying. Each time I study, I become clearer, and that is really true for really all of us. So my best wishes for you to keep this text in mind and refer to it from time to time. And I would even suggest to you that if it is feasible, then please teach it to some people. Because my own experience from the old days, this is what I really learned from Swami Paramarthananda back in the year 2000. He said that his teaching itself was very helpful to himself as a person. And I find the same thing, really, because I appreciate dedicated, mature students who are willing to listen to me. So that really allows me to focus my mind and to keep going. And every time I do that, it really clarifies the same thoughts for me. And so I appreciate your support and presence, and good luck to you. And so what I was saying was that if it is possible, then because it's not that big a text, you could even just take the first 31 verses, and then you have a book there as well. And you might explore just forming a small group of people and teaching them that. They will benefit, and so will you. So my good wishes to you for that. And with that, I take your leave, and I hope that 2 weeks from today, we will just take a small break next Saturday, but 2 weeks from today, we will start Gita chapter number 8. Oh, thank you so much. Bye-bye.